Shattered Reflections. The first time Nora found the text messages, her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped her phone. 3 years into their marriage, and Ethan had promised her the world, a promise that now lay in fragments like the wine glass she'd shattered last week. The messages to his colleague Vanessa were unmistakable in their intent, filled with words he once reserved only for her. "It was nothing," Ethan insisted later that night, his hazel eyes wide with practiced innocence. "Just workplace banter that went too far. I'll end it immediately." His voice cracked with what seemed like genuine remorse, and Nora, raised on stories of forgiveness and second chances, nodded through her tears. They had met during Nora's final year of journalism school, when Ethan guest lectured on documentary filmmaking. His passion for storytelling had captivated her. His intensity when discussing ethical journalism had made her believe they shared the same values. Their courtship had been a whirlwind of late-night discussions about changing the world through truth-telling, weekends exploring hidden corners of the city, and promises of a partnership built on honesty. "I promise you, Nora," Ethan whispered, holding her face between his hands, a week after she discovered the messages. "It was a mistake I'll never make again." He presented her with a silver bracelet, a delicate thing with a charm that read, "Truth." The irony wouldn't strike her until much later. For months afterward, Ethan was the husband she'd always wanted. Attentive, loving, bringing her coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, and leaving little notes in her laptop case before work. Nora began to believe the incident had truly been an anomaly, a momentary lapse in judgment. Her friends, who had expressed concern, gradually relaxed as she assured them everything was fine. "Marriage takes work," she told her best friend Josephine over lunch. "Everyone makes mistakes." Josephine's skeptical expression should have been a warning, but Nora dismissed it as cynicism from someone who had never been married. Then came the business trips that ran longer than scheduled, the late-night calls he took in the bathroom with the shower running, the subtle change in how he positioned his phone screen away from her. Nora recognized the signs but pushed them away, focusing instead on the life they were building, the home they had purchased in a quiet neighborhood, the future they had planned. The second time she found evidence, a hotel receipt with 2 breakfast orders when he was supposedly alone. The confrontation followed the same script: denial, then confession, tears, then promises. This time, it was a necklace with a pendant in the shape of a compass. "To find our way back to each other," he said. Each time, the cycle left a hairline fracture in Nora's spirit. She began to lose sleep, checking his phone while he showered, scanning credit card statements for anomalies. The vibrant journalist, who once chased stories fearlessly, now second-guessed herself constantly. Had she been too demanding? Not attentive enough? Her editor noticed her distraction, gently suggesting she take some personal time. "Is everything all right at home?" he asked. "Perfect," Nora replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're absolutely perfect." But in the quiet moments alone, staring at her reflection, Nora barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Somewhere beneath the careful makeup, that concealed dark circles behind eyes that had lost their spark, was the person she used to be, waiting. Hollow apologies. By their 5th anniversary, Nora had become an expert in the archaeology of lies. She could detect the subtle shift in Ethan's voice when he fabricated an excuse, recognize the particular way he overcompensated with affection, after an unexplained absence. The cycle had become so predictable that she sometimes wondered if she was complicit in its perpetuation. The third discovery came in the form of a credit card statement showing purchases at a jewelry store she had never received gifts from. When confronted, Ethan crumbled quickly, admitting to a brief emotional connection with a producer from his network. This time, his apology came with a weekend getaway to the coastal town where they'd honeymooned. "I'm seeing a therapist," he told her as they walked along the shoreline, the waves erasing their footprints behind them. I'm working through some issues from my childhood that make me seek validation outside our marriage. Nora wanted to believe him. The alternative, that she had hitched her life to someone incapable of fidelity, was too painful to consider, so she nodded and squeezed his hand, ignoring the hollow feeling spreading through her chest. "We'll get through this," she said, more to herself than to him. Their friends and family saw what Ethan wanted them to see: a devoted husband who occasionally made grand, romantic gestures. What they didn't see were the nights Nora spent staring at the ceiling, wondering who she had become. The woman who had once broken a story on municipal corruption, who had fearlessly confronted powerful figures, now avoided conflict at home for fear of disrupting their fragile peace. Winter melted into spring, and with it came a promotion for Ethan, executive producer on a new documentary series that would require frequent travel. Nora congratulated him with genuine pride, hoping the professional recognition might finally fill whatever void drove him to seek attention elsewhere. For a while, it seemed to work. Their relationship entered a period of relative calm. Ethan called regularly during his trips, sent photos of filming locations, and returned home with renewed energy for their marriage. Nora began to relax, focusing on her own career again, pitching ambitious stories to her editor. Then came the fourth betrayal, more brazen than the others. A junior researcher from Ethan's team accidentally tagged him in photos from a night out, photos that showed him with his arm around a woman looking at her with unmistakable intimacy. When the researcher realized her mistake and removed the tags, it was too late. Nora had already seen them. This time, Ethan's apology followed a new script. He blamed the pressure of the production, the loneliness of being away from home, the drinks that had impaired his judgment. He knelt before her in their living room, tears streaming down his face. "You're the only one who truly knows me, Nora," he insisted, his voice breaking. These meaningless distractions, they're not real. What we have is real." The gifts became more extravagant: a designer watch, a weekend spa retreat, a donation in her name to the journalism scholarship fund she supported. With each gesture, Nora felt the weight of obligation to forgive, to move forward, to maintain the life they had built. "He's really trying this time," she told Josephine over coffee, aware of how hollow the words sounded. "And what about you?" Josephine asked, her eyes searching Nora's face. "Are you happy, Nora?" The question lingered between them, unanswered. Because the truth was, Nora couldn't remember what happiness felt like anymore. She had become so focused on managing Ethan's behavior, on anticipating the next betrayal, that she had forgotten how to exist outside the cycle. That night, lying awake beside Ethan, Nora realized something had shifted within her. The pain of his betrayals had dulled, not because she had forgiven him, but because she had detached from the part of herself that cared. The realization should have terrified her, but instead, it felt like the first honest moment she'd had in years. As Ethan slept soundly beside her, Nora made a silent promise to herself, one she intended to keep. Seeds of strength. The morning after her realization, Nora woke with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. While Ethan slept, she slipped out of bed and stood before the bathroom mirror, really looking at herself for the first time in months. The woman staring back had shadows under her eyes and tension lines around her mouth that hadn't been there before. But beneath the weariness, she recognized something familiar, a spark of determination that had once defined her. "Enough," she whispered to her reflection. That day, Nora called an old journalism school friend, Tessa, who now ran a digital news platform. They met for lunch in a cafe far from Ethan's usual haunts. "I need to get back to serious writing," Nora said, stirring her tea. "Something I can work on independently, maybe from home." Tessa studied her face. "Does this have anything to do with Ethan?" Nora hesitated, then offered a partial truth. I just need something that's mine again. By the end of lunch, Nora had secured a freelance position investigating the impact of corporate development on local communities, a story she could work on between her regular assignments. The first payment would go into a new account, one Ethan knew nothing about. At home, she maintained the facade of the dutiful wife, playing her role in their damaged relationship while quietly laying the groundwork for her independence. When not in doubt, Ethan commented on her improved mood. She attributed it to a new yoga class, another small deception in a marriage built on lies, but one that served her this time. The fifth betrayal came 3 months later, a lipstick smudge on his collar, so cliché that Nora almost laughed when she spotted it while doing laundry. Instead of confronting him immediately, she took a photo with her phone and continued folding clothes, her heart surprisingly steady. That evening, when Ethan presented his usual excuses about a colleague crying on his shoulder over workplace drama, Nora simply nodded. "These things happen?" she said, watching confusion flicker across his face at her easy acceptance. His relief was palpable. "You're amazing, you know that? Most women wouldn't be so understanding." Nora smiled thinly. "I guess I'm not most women." Later, she forwarded the photo to her private email account, not as ammunition for a future confrontation, but as a reminder to herself of why she was building her escape route. The freelance work became her sanctuary. Each article she wrote under a pseudonym helped rebuild her confidence. Each payment into her secret account represented another brick in the foundation of her new life. She began researching apartments in a neighboring city, close enough to maintain her current job but far enough to start fresh. During this time, Ethan received another promotion, necessitating more travel. His absences became gifts, precious hours when Nora could work without pretense, when she could breathe freely in their home without monitoring her expressions or measuring her words. She reconnected with friends she'd neglected, careful not to reveal her plans but nurturing connections that existed outside her marriage. Josephine was the only one who seemed to sense the change in her. "You seem different," she observed during a rare evening out while Ethan was away. "More like the old Nora." "Do I?" Nora smiled, sipping her wine. "I suppose I've been thinking about what you asked me before, about whether I'm happy. And I'm working on it." 6 months into her private rebellion, Nora received an offer from Tessa to join the digital platform full-time as an investigative editor. The position came with a substantial salary, enough to support herself comfortably, but would require her complete commitment. That night, alone in the house with Ethan on yet another business trip, Nora sat at their dining table with 2 lists before her. On one, she had written every apology Ethan had ever given her, every promise he had broken. On the other, she outlined what her life could look like if she accepted Tessa's offer. As she reviewed both lists, Nora realized she was no longer afraid of being alone. In fact, she had been alone for years, emotionally abandoned in a marriage that existed mostly in appearance. The difference now was that she had reclaimed pieces of herself that Ethan's betrayals had chipped away. Her phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Missing you. Be home tomorrow with a surprise." Nora read it without emotion, then returned to her lists. By the time she went to bed, her decision was made. The seed of strength that had been quietly germinating within her had broken through, reaching toward the light. The quiet revolution. The surprise Ethan brought home was a pair of tickets to Paris, a second honeymoon to reconnect and renew their vows. He presented them over dinner, reaching for her hand across the table with expectant eyes. "What do you think? 10 days in the city of love, just the 2 of us." Nora smiled and squeezed his hand. "It sounds wonderful," she said, her voice steady. Inside, she calculated. 10 more weeks until she could afford the security deposit on the apartment she'd visited twice now. 10 more weeks of building her professional portfolio under Tessa's guidance. We deserve this. After everything, Ethan continued, relief evident in his features. Yes, Nora agreed. We do deserve what's coming. The double meaning sailed past him as he launched into plans for the trip. Nora listened, nodding at appropriate intervals, while her mind mapped out the final stages of her exit strategy. The Paris trip would happen just before her planned departure, a fitting end to their chapter together. Over the following weeks, Nora perfected what she privately called her stealth existence. On the surface, she was the supportive wife planning a romantic getaway. Beneath that facade, she was systematically separating her life from Ethan's. She began with practical matters, transferring personal documents to a safe deposit box, cataloging possessions that were unquestionably hers, gradually moving sentimental items to a storage unit rented under her maiden name. Each small action was a private victory, a reclamation of her autonomy. The digital platform job became her anchor. When Tessa offered her an advance to secure her commitment, Nora used it to put down the deposit on the apartment. She signed the lease on a Tuesday afternoon while Ethan was in a production meeting, the pen steady in her hand as she formalized the first concrete step toward her new life. You can move in any time after the 15th, the property manager told her, handing over a set of keys that felt significant in her palm. Thank you, Nora replied. I'll be ready. Alongside these practical preparations, Nora underwent a less tangible transformation. She started setting boundaries in small ways, declining to answer Ethan's texts immediately, expressing opinions that contradicted his, refusing to smooth over awkward moments at social gatherings when he made thoughtless comments. These subtle assertions of independence didn't go unnoticed. One evening, after she challenged his dismissive remark about a colleague's work, Ethan studied her with narrowed eyes. You've been different lately, he said. Is everything okay between us? Nora met his gaze evenly. Why wouldn't it be? The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Ethan was the first to look away, muttering something about being tired from work. As their Paris trip approached, Nora finalized arrangements with Tessa to start her new position immediately upon their return. She told her current editor she was considering a career change, but kept the details vague, promising a formal resignation letter soon. Josephine was the only person who knew the full extent of her plans. Over dinner at Josephine's apartment, Nora finally unburdened herself, sharing every betrayal, every hollow apology, every step of her carefully constructed escape. I'm not leaving him because of what he did, Nora concluded, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. I'm leaving because of what staying would do to me. Josephine reached across the table and squeezed her hand. The Nora I knew in college is back. Not back, Nora corrected her. Evolved. 3 days before their scheduled departure for Paris, Nora received a text from a number she didn't recognize. You should know your husband isn't who he pretends to be. Check the Westlake Hotel, room 327, tonight. She stared at the message for a long time, feeling strangely calm. There was a time when such a text would have sent her into a spiral of panic and pain. Now it was merely confirmation of what she already knew. Ethan would never change. Nora didn't go to the hotel. She didn't need to see another betrayal with her own eyes to validate her decision. Instead, she spent the evening packing a suitcase, not for Paris, but for the first night in her new apartment. As she folded clothes into neat stacks, she realized she felt no anger, no heartbreak, not even disappointment. Those emotions had been exhausted long ago, replaced by a tranquil certainty that she was finally honoring the promise she had made to herself. When Ethan returned home late that night, smelling faintly of unfamiliar perfume, Nora was sitting in the living room, with a glass of wine, watching the city lights through the window. He hesitated in the doorway, clearly surprised to find her still awake. "Working late?" she asked, not turning to look at him. "Yes," he answered too quickly. "Production issues. You know how it is." Nora took a sip of her wine. "I do know," she said softly. "Better than you think." Breaking the chains, Paris was beautiful in the spring, exactly as the postcards promised. Cherry blossoms along the Seine, cafe tables spilling onto sun-dappled sidewalks, the Eiffel Tower gleaming against clear blue skies. Nora absorbed it, all with the keen awareness that she was experiencing these sights not as one half of a reconciling couple, but as a woman on the verge of rebirth. Ethan was attentive throughout the trip, holding her hand as they strolled through Montmartre, surprising her with reservations at exclusive restaurants, taking countless photos of her against picturesque backdrops. To anyone observing them, they appeared to be exactly what Ethan wanted people to see, a devoted husband reconnecting with his wife. On their final evening in Paris, they stood on the balcony of their hotel room overlooking the illuminated city. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "This has been perfect," he murmured. "I feel like we've finally put everything behind us." Nora leaned slightly into his embrace, committing the moment to memory, not with nostalgia, but as a milestone. "It has been revealing," she replied. Back in their room, Ethan presented her with a velvet box containing a diamond bracelet. "A symbol of our renewed commitment," he said, his expression earnest as he fastened it around her wrist. Nora examined the glittering stones, thinking of all the jewelry he had given her over the years, each piece a material stand-in for genuine remorse, each accepted with diminishing hope. "It's beautiful," she said, and it wasn't a lie. "Thank you." That night, as Ethan slept beside her, Nora lay awake watching the play of shadows across the ceiling. Tomorrow they would fly home, and the life she had carefully constructed in secret would begin. There was no anxiety in this knowledge, only a quiet anticipation. Their flight landed at 3:42 p.m. local time. By 5:30 they were home, tired from travel but relieved to be back. Ethan immediately checked his phone for messages, frowning at something on the screen. "Problem?" Nora asked, unpacking her toiletries in the bathroom. "Production emergency," he said, already typing a response. "I might need to go in tonight." Nora paused, catching her reflection in the mirror. This would be easier than she had anticipated. "Of course," she said. "I understand." While Ethan showered, Nora called Josephine, who answered on the first ring. "You're back. How are you feeling?" "Ready," Nora replied simply. An hour later, Ethan was dressed to leave, kissing her quickly on the cheek. "Don't wait up, this might take a while." "I won't," Nora assured him. The moment the front door closed, she moved with practiced efficiency. From beneath the guest room bed, she retrieved the suitcase she had packed before their trip. From a hidden folder in her desk, she took the lease agreement, her new job contract, and the letter she had written to Ethan 3 weeks ago. She changed out of her travel clothes into an outfit she had selected specifically for this moment. A deep blue dress she had purchased with her first freelance payment, a physical reminder of her first step toward freedom. When the doorbell rang at 7:15, Josephine was waiting with her car already running. "Last chance to change your mind," she said as Nora wheeled her suitcase onto the porch. Nora shook her head. "I made my decision long ago. I was just waiting for the right moment to honor it." They drove to her new apartment in comfortable silence. The space was small but filled with evening light, with windows overlooking a tree-lined street and walls she had already painted a soft sage green during Ethan's previous business trip. After helping her bring in the suitcase, Josephine hugged her tightly. "Call me if you need anything, day or night." "I will," Nora promised. "But I think I'll be fine." Alone in her new home, Nora moved through the rooms, touching furniture she had selected, arranging the few personal items she had brought, with quiet satisfaction. This space contained no memories of broken promises, no echoes of tearful confrontations. It was unmarked territory ready for her to define. At 10:23 p.m., her phone lit up with Ethan's name. She let it ring 3 times before answering. "Where are you?" His voice was sharp with confusion and the first edge of panic. "I came home and—" "I know," Nora interrupted calmly. "You found my letter." A beat of silence. "Is this some kind of joke? Some test?" "No, Ethan. It's a goodbye." "Because of Paris?" "I thought we were past all that. I thought—" "This isn't about Paris," Nora said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "This is about me choosing myself after years of watching you choose everyone but me." His tone shifted to the familiar pattern of contrition. "Nora, please. Whatever you think happened, I can explain. We can fix this. We can—" "There's nothing to fix," she said. "The letter explains everything, including the divorce papers that will be delivered to your office tomorrow. I've divided our assets fairly. I'm not asking for anything that isn't rightfully mine. You can't just—" His voice cracked. "We're married. You can't just walk away." Nora closed her eyes, feeling a wave of something unexpected. Not regret or doubt, but compassion for the man who never understood what he had until it was gone. "I already have, Ethan. I started walking away months ago with each step I took, to rebuild myself. You just didn't notice because you were too busy looking elsewhere." There was a long silence, then the sound of him sitting down heavily. "I love you," he said. A final card played in desperation. "I know you believe that," Nora replied softly. "But love doesn't hurt like this. Love doesn't require constant forgiveness. Love doesn't diminish you." She ended the call before he could respond, setting her phone on the kitchen counter. Outside her window, the city continued its evening rhythm, traffic lights changing, people returning home, lives unfolding in countless directions. Removing the diamond bracelet from her wrist, Nora placed it in a small box she would mail back to him tomorrow. It was the last piece of Ethan's apologies she would ever wear. In the quiet of her new beginning, Nora Gregory finally felt the full weight of the chains she had carried for years, and the extraordinary lightness of setting them down for good.